I married my husband at 16, and we were deeply in love. He remained devoted to me, refusing to take a concubine. Even when my mother-in-law tormented me for not bearing a child, he always protected me and stood up to her. After my death, overwhelmed by grief, he abandoned his official post, became a wandering monk, and traveled far and wide. Before leaving, he left these words: "In this life, I have no regrets. If there is an afterlife, I will still marry Ning Yao as my wife." So after they were both reborn, he still chose to propose. But this time, I said, "Ju Yanxi, I won't marry you. I don't want to taste the bitterness hidden beneath the flowers and splendor again. A life spent in the dark, kept in the dark forever, is not something I wish to continue living." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. How can you treat such a major life matter as a joke? Mother's teacup landed heavily on the table as she frowned. You grew up with him since childhood, and the verbal engagement was made long ago. Now that he has come of age, he doesn't have a single woman by his side. He has always been considerate of you in every way. Weren't you just talking yesterday about when Brother Yanxi would return to the capital? Why have you changed your mind today? Our dynasty governs with Confucian principles, respecting spirits but keeping them at a distance. Something as supernatural as reincarnation isn't something I can openly discuss. I simply knelt silently before my mother and said, "Mother, your daughter absolutely will not marry him." Mother was both confused and angry, thinking I was just speaking in a fit of pique and unwilling to refuse outright. Just then, grandfather knocked and entered. He helped me up, stroked his beard, and sighed. "Yao Yu has studied and pursued knowledge with me since she was a child and has never been one to act on a whim. If she says she won't marry, she must have her own reasons. Zhuyu hasn't agreed yet either. Yao Yao, if you still haven't changed your mind in 3 days, I'll personally go to the Ju residence to decline on your behalf." My eyes grew hot, and tears nearly fell. I had been afraid that grandfather would scold me. He has always been strict and holds Ju Yanxi in high regard. Mother let out a soft sigh. Although he has been away from the capital for several months, he was searching for medicinal herbs to cure your illness. When he came to propose today, his face still bore injuries. How did things suddenly turn out like this? I remained silent, with only bitterness left in my heart. Yes, everyone thought Ju Yanxi was madly in love with me. Even I believed it until my last breath. In my previous life, I married into the Ju family at 16 and died of illness 10 years later. Throughout our 10 years of marriage, Ju Yanxi never took a concubine or visited brothels. I have been unable to conceive for a long time, and the doctor said it's due to an old illness, making it difficult to have children. My mother-in-law gradually grew dissatisfied and wanted him to take a concubine to continue the family line. I also endured the heartache and advised him to do so, but Ju Yanxi said, "In this lifetime, I would rather have no descendants than betray Ningyao." My mother-in-law believed that I was jealous because I had no children. There are many ways to torment someone in the inner household, but whenever Ju Yanxia noticed that my mother-in-law was deliberately making things difficult for me, he would always stand up for me. Filial piety is highly valued in the current dynasty, and a reputation for being unfilial could ruin one's future prospects. Yet, for my sake, Ju Yanxia repeatedly confronted his mother with anger and defiance. I was both moved and deeply unsettled. Everyone said Ju Yanxi was deeply in love with me. I used to believe that too. After death, my soul drifted through the world, seeing him kneel before my spirit for 3 days and 3 nights, grieving to the point of nearly fainting, seeing him abandon his official post and build a hut beside my grave to live there. In the end, he simply renounced the world, became a monk with unshaven hair, and wandered the land. No matter how his mother wept and pleaded, he only left behind these words: "I have no regrets in this life. If there is an afterlife, I would still marry Ning Yao as my wife." Some say our love moved heaven and earth. Many also curse me as a femme fatale, who actually bewitched a man to the point of being unfaithful and unfilial. My soul wept bitterly in mid-air, until I saw Ju Yanxi in that border town, embracing a foreign woman. The truth beneath the false affection was enough to wound me all over. I never doubted that Ju Yanxi loved me. At least, It should have been true before he met that proud and unrestrained woman from the grasslands, in the spring of my 15th year, during the royal hunt. At that time, many vassal states and tribes dependent on the Great Shang had come to the capital to pay tribute. I am not in good health, so I stay at home. Afterwards, Zhu Yanxi sent me a fox fur scarf. So I did not know that Zhu Yanxi's arrow hitting the white fox had deeply attracted Tuya, the youngest daughter of the chieftain of the Chili tribe. She is bold and unrestrained. Even though Zhu Yanjin said he had someone in his heart, she still clung to him, expressing her affection. Even I had heard about it. Later, Tuya left the capital with her father. Before departing, she suddenly gave Zhu Yanjin a firm kiss on the lips. Then, laughing heartily, she mounted her horse. Zhu Yanxi was afraid I would misunderstand and get angry, so he explained to me for a long time, yet he never told me. From that moment on, her passionate boldness was already imprinted in his heart. Later, in order to find the medicinal herbs to cure my illness, he went searching on the grasslands. Tuya knew and followed. No matter how Zhu Yanxi scolded or gave her the cold shoulder, she wouldn't leave, just like a cliché storybook. The two fell off a cliff and were poisoned by an aphrodisiac herb. Like thunder striking the earth, they tangled passionately all night, losing all sense of time and place. Zhu Yanxi confirmed his feelings and said he would take responsibility, marrying her as his wife. Ketoya snorted coldly. You Central Plains people have too many rules. I wouldn't deign to enter your inner chambers and fight with other women. Marry whomever you originally intended. She wrapped herself around the man's neck like a proud she-wolf, her face willful and coquettish. But you must take this infertility medicine to her. You are my man. I can only tolerate her helping you relieve your desires. I cannot bear her bearing your children. Zhu Yanxi listened, then merely smiled with a mix of helplessness and indulgence. Good, I will be loyal only to you. The two of them laughed as they reminisced about the past. Zhu Yanxi pretended to be deeply affected by my death and traveled the world. In reality, he eloped with Tuya, abandoning all family and national responsibilities, to wholeheartedly indulge in love, and let me bear the infamy. Later, many noble ladies in the capital would say of me, in the future, we must not seek a daughter-in-law like Ning Yao, who can make men cast everything aside. The next day, I went out to worship the Buddha, while the world below was already filled with the warmth of spring. Remnants of snow still weighed down the branches on the mountain, Yaroa. That call almost made me freeze in place. This is the first time I've seen Zhu Yanxi since my rebirth. His eyes were filled with complex emotions as he quickly walked to my side, gently adjusting my cloak. Then, with a tone that was neither too harsh nor too light, he scolded Xiaodao, "How are you serving your young lady? The cloak isn't even fastened properly. What if she catches a cold?" Xiaodao stared at him as if she had seen a ghost. He suddenly stepped forward, blocking my way. In a low voice, both anxious and angry, he said, "Young Master Zhu, mind your manners." Zhu Yanxi seemed to snap back to reality, momentarily stunned. In that instant, my heart sank heavily. It turns out I'm not the only one who has been reborn. His demeanor struck me as rather ridiculous. "Yeah, I was just thinking that we're about to be married, and I might have been a bit too forward." He looked somewhat embarrassed. "In 2 days, it will be the Shangxi festival. The third princess has sent out invitations for a banquet, and there will be an archery contest with a fine jade pendant as the prize. I will win it for you as part of your dowry." His eyes were bright, as if he truly had me in his heart and in his gaze. Mentioning the third princess, I began to understand. In my previous life, at the Deer Cry banquet, the third princess had also intended to take him as her consort. However, Zhu Yanxi and I grew up together and had an early verbal engagement. My grandfather was a veteran minister who served 3 dynasties, and my father passed away early. I am the only remaining bloodline of the Ning family. The emperor would certainly not ruin my marriage prospects over this. The third princess then let the matter rest. But if Zhu Yanxi were to reject the princess for the daughter of a grassland tribal chieftain, so it's a direct slap in the face of the imperial family. No wonder, even after being reborn. Zhu Yanxi still wants to use me as a shield. I tightened my grip on the handkerchief and was about to expose him when I saw him take out another sachet. "Yeah, This contains soothing herbs. You must wear it every day, it will help you sleep better." Word by word, her voice was firm, her eyes held not a trace of evasion, only concern for me, as if it truly contained calming herbs inside, and not the sachet from my previous life. The one that had inexplicably gone missing after I was diagnosed with infertility. My blood ran cold. It seemed Zhu Yanxi intended to replay everything from my past life. But why? Why should I, having been reborn, sacrifice my entire life to fulfill their love story? Xiao Dao, put it away. My voice is hoarse. Seeing that I didn't put it on right away, Zhu Yanzhen wanted to persuade me further. Are you Ning Yao? Amidst the sound of galloping hooves, a domineering voice rang in my ears. It was Chuya. She looked me up and down and sneered. Nothing special. She glanced at the sachet that Xiao Dao had put away. The snow-summer grass inside only blooms at the peak of the bitter cold mountain. Young Master Zhu went through great trouble to find it for you. And you not only accepted it without a second thought but also casually tossed it to your maid. You truly don't know what's good for you. Or are all you Central Plains women like this? Accustomed to enjoying men pouring their hearts out for you, yet never knowing how to return the favor, truly ill-mannered. Watch your words. A flicker of displeasure flashed in Zhu Yanxi's eyes. Chuya curled her lips in disdain. I said coldly, "What business is it of yours? The matter between me and Zhu Yanxi." This was the first direct confrontation between Chuya and me in 2 lifetimes. Her eyes widened, as if she hadn't expected me to talk back. I straightened my back and declared firmly, "His Majesty honors my grandfather with the title of minister, and personally praised the Ning family for its upright conduct. I was raised and educated by my grandfather. If you say I lack upbringing, are you looking down on my grandfather, or are you dissatisfied with the words spoken by His Majesty? I'd like to ask, is that just your opinion, or does your father think so too?" With such a heavy accusation thrown at her, Chuya's face turned pale then green. Zhu Yanjia was also stunned. His gaze intently scanning my face. "Yao Yao, how did you suddenly become so sharp-tongued?" Chuya looked at him, both aggrieved and resentful. "Zhu Yanjia, are you just going to stand by and watch her slander me?" Xiao Dao put her hands on her hips and stepped forward. "What else? Should Lord Zhu protect my lady? Or a stranger like you?" But Zhu Yanxi let out a sigh. "She's just a foreign woman. Why bother arguing with her?" Xiao Dao stared at him in disbelief. I sneered. "After being verbally abused and having the Ning family's reputation insulted by your admirer, am I not allowed to be angry?" Zhu Yanxi stared at me intently, as if relieved, and let out a light laugh. "No wonder you've been so explosive today. Is our little Yaya feeling jealous?" I couldn't be bothered to say another word to him and turned to leave. Anyway, he'll naturally find out in a couple of days. In this lifetime, I have no connection with him anymore. In this lifetime. I recovered from my illness a bit earlier. On the day of the Shaanxi festival, I went out to attend the third princess's banquet. Seeing my unwavering determination, grandfather prepared a carriage to take me to the Zhu residence. At the banquet, both Zhu Yanxi and Chuya were present. These past 2 days, Zhu Yanxi had wanted to see me, but I had refused him every time. Halfway through the banquet, the third princess invited everyone to the prepared archery range and had her maids bring out the prizes she had readied. Within 3 arrows, whoever has the best aim will win this competition. Zhu Yanxi was the first to stand up, and several other young gentlemen also signed up. As he passed by me, he leaned down and whispered, "All right, Yao Yao, don't be upset anymore. Watch me win that jade pendant for you." Just as they were about to begin, Chuya suddenly raised her voice and said, "Your Highness may not know, but all daughters of the grassland are skilled in riding and archery. May I participate?" The crowd whispered among themselves, while the third princess, looking intrigued, nodded in agreement. Xiao Dao whispered beside me, "What a show-off." I felt an inexplicable unease in my heart. The first arrow, Zhu Yanxi slightly missed the mark, while Chuya only hit the edge. The second arrow, Zhu Yanxi hit the bullseye, while Chuya missed again. Many couldn't help but chuckle. Zhu Yanxi glanced at her with amusement and a hint of indulgence. The daughter of the censor approached and said, "Yaoa, you must be careful with this foreign woman. Lord Zhu seems to treat her differently." The way he looked at Chuya carried a natural familiarity and intimacy, as if they had known each other for many years. I pondered silently in my heart, wondering exactly when Ju Yenshi had been reborn, yet I also noticed a young man of foreign appearance in the corner, whose gender was ambiguous, gazing with a calm and steady expression. Both of his arrows landed firmly in the center of the target, this year's newly crowned martial arts champion, Lu Yun. As he prepared for the third arrow, my unease grew, and I was about to leave my seat when suddenly I heard Chuya exclaim, "Oh no!" The arrow in his hand suddenly changed direction, in an instant. Every hair on my body stood on end, and my pupils abruptly contracted, yet my body remained rigidly in place, already too late to dodge. "Miss Yaroa," a sharp whistling sound cut through the air, followed by a stinging pain grazing my ear. "Miss, are you okay?" Ju Yenshi rushed over in large strides to check my injuries, his eyes filled with lingering fear. Xiaodao was almost scared to tears. Amid the chaos, I gasped for breath, covering the left side of my face, and looked back with lingering fear. The arrow shot by Chuya was split in two by another arrow, carried by the force of the wind and firmly embedded in the tree trunk behind me. "How dare you!" The third princess was both shocked and furious. "Seize her!" Chuya stiffened her neck defiantly and said. "An insect flew into my eye, and she wasn't even hurt. What's all the fuss about?" The tall matron beside the third princess delivered a harsh kick to the back of Chuya's knee. She let out a miserable cry and fell to her knees. The third princess shot a sharp glare, and the old woman immediately grabbed her chin, slapping her hard across both cheeks. Chuya's face immediately swelled up badly. She widened her eyes and screamed, "You hit me! Is this how you treat an envoy? My own father has never laid a finger on me. Besides, she stole your consort, and you're actually defending her." The third princess sneered. "Do you think everyone is like you? With nothing but love and romance in their head? This is Dashing. We won't tolerate insolence from outsiders like you." Ning Miao wasn't harmed because Lord Lu's arrow arrived in time. "Don't threaten me with diplomatic relations between our two nations. I will report today's events to my father, but for now, lock her up. Your Highness, please calm your anger." Ju Yenji, who had been concerned about me, had his entire attention seized from the moment Chuya was hit. Hearing this, he lifted his robe and knelt directly. Chuya truly made an unintentional mistake. A bug did fly into her eye. I saw it clearly. Yair is only slightly grazed, so why make such a big fuss? The third princess gave him a strange look, sizing him up and down. "She hurt your fiancé, and you're actually speaking up for her." Ju Yenshi's eyes flickered as he quickly looked at me. "Yao Yao, you only scraped your skin, right? Chuya really didn't mean to do it. Could you put in a good word for her?" I said. "When grandfather traveled to the western regions in his youth, he once saw a damaged Buddha statue in a cave, with only the pedestal remaining." Ju Yenshi grew both anxious and confused. "Why are you suddenly bringing this up?" I'm saying, "Since you're so fond of being generous with others' kindness, you should sit on it and replace that Buddha statue." Ju Yenshi pondered for a moment, his expression turning ugly as he scolded me. "What do you mean others? We're about to get married, and you insist on clinging to such trivial matters. Is it just because you're jealous of Chuya? Aren't you afraid people will call you jealous?" I took a deep breath, exhausted after narrowly escaping death. Yet Ju Yenshi continued speaking as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Yaroa, I really have nothing with her. Chuya is backed by the Chili tribe. Can we not stir up trouble at this time?" I no longer wanted to pretend and play along with him. I interrupted him. "Ju Yenshi, didn't you already spread the reputation of me being jealous long ago?" "When did I?" Ju Yenshi instinctively retorted, then turned to look at me in disbelief. "Yao Yao, you too?" I ignored him and turned to the third princess. "Your Highness, since this matter is of great importance, let us seek His Majesty's judgment." The Shangxi festival banquet came to an abrupt end. I shared a carriage with her, and the third princess seemed lost in thought throughout the journey. When we arrived at the main hall, my grandfather was sitting on the stool bestowed by His Majesty. Upon seeing me, he immediately stood up and hurried over to carefully examine my injuries. My eyes welled up with tears as I called out "Grandfather," then lowered my head to wipe them away. Grandfather's expression turned solemn. He knelt down and spoke in a grave voice. "Your Majesty, my only son passed away early, leaving behind just one daughter. I have raised her as my most precious treasure. I have already retired from office, and during my time as an official, I never had any conflicts with the Chili tribe. This was Yaroa's first time stepping out since falling ill. How could she have possibly provoked them? Do they truly intend to kill my only granddaughter? Grand Tutor, please rise quickly." The eunuch beside His Majesty helped my grandfather to his feet. "Khan, do you have anything to say?" His Majesty's words caused the tall foreign chieftain's forehead to break out in a fine layer of sweat. He hastily knelt down. "Tuya is also my youngest daughter, spoiled since childhood. It was truly an unintentional mistake. I beg your Majesty to be lenient in your judgment. An unintentional mistake. I saw it clearly. From the second arrow, her gaze was shifting and uncertain. If her eyes were truly bothered by an insect, her grip should have loosened. Yet she still had the strength to shoot that arrow at Miss Ning." Lu Yun suddenly spoke up. His expression was meaningful. "She said that all children of the grasslands are skilled in horse riding and archery. It seems the Chili tribe truly cannot be underestimated." The third princess and Lu Yun exchanged a glance. Understanding each other without words, Ying knelt down and said with grievance, "Father, it was I who proposed this archery competition. I kindly invited Tuya to participate to show the goodwill of our great Sheng, yet she actually committed violence in public. Is it truly out of sheer willfulness, or is it under the Khan's instruction? Do you not have any regard for me, the princess, or do you not have any regard for our great Sheng?" One accusation after another was thrown at me, and the situation had long since strayed from the matter of my injury. I whispered to my grandfather, "How much do you think His Majesty will demand from the Chili tribe before he is willing to let this rest?" Grandfather just patted my head. "Yaroa, I am now just a grandfather, wanting to get justice for my granddaughter, and that Jew." He gritted his teeth. His eyes filled with cold fury. "No wonder you suddenly refused to marry him. I was truly blind, thinking he was a good man to entrust your life to, according to the laws of Darsheng. Tuya's actions would be considered attempted assault. If she were thrown into prison and given 30 lashes, she would likely lose half her life. She's just a minister's daughter, yet she dares to be so arrogant toward me. I was so angry I wanted to scare her a little. I never intended to hit her. How could things turn out like this?" The color gradually drained from Tuya's face. The Khan truly doted on this little daughter. He spoiled her to the point where she didn't know her own limits. But he would also protect her. In the end, the matter was resolved with the Chili tribe presenting the Ning family with many rare medicinal herbs, ceding a piece of fertile land with abundant water and grass, and paying tribute for 3 years. The emperor looked at my grandfather and asked, "What does the minister think?" I took a deep breath and knelt down. "Your Majesty, I have something to report." I took out the sachet and held it up high. Zhu Yanxi realized what I was about to do. His eyes filled with disbelief. "Yaroa, I didn't even look at him," raising my voice to declare, "Tuya targets me, your subject, solely because she and Lord Zhu are in love with each other. Due to Lord Zhu's engagement with me, she sees me as a thorn in her side. The two of them have long pledged themselves to each other in secret, and Lord Zhu even had this sachet delivered to me, intending to render me infertile for life, if your Majesty orders the imperial physicians to examine it. The truth will be revealed." Amid Zhu Yanxia's deathly pale expression, I laid out everything I could say. The third princess's gaze toward Zhu Yanxia gradually shifted to one of confusion, disdain, and contempt. "Zhu Yanxi, I must have been blind. I thought highly of you when you rejected imperial wealth for your childhood sweetheart. But it turns out you're not as steadfast as I believed. How could you be so easily bewitched by such a lowly creature?" Before leaving home today, I had already informed my grandfather about the scented sachet incident. Otherwise, I feared my grandfather might have beaten him right then and there in the court. After all, Zhu Yanxi didn't live those extra decades for nothing. He immediately made a decisive move, hitting his forehead until it bled. He insisted that he had no idea the sachet didn't contain calming herbs. It concerned his own official career. The man who had just been so adamant in asking me to forgive Tuya was now shifting all the blame onto her. All because of this foreign woman. Jealousy was born from love. Tuya looked at him, her expression flustered. Zhu Lang, for such a spineless man, you really infuriate me. The Khan wore an expression of bitter disappointment. Zhu Yanxi knelt to the ground. But after all, Ning Yaro is unharmed, and Tuya was only acting on a momentary impulse. I beg your majesty to show leniency. The emperor's expression remained unreadable, yet it sent chills down one's spine. My dear minister, you are still not steady enough. Zhu Yanxi's back gradually slumped. With the emperor's comment, his official career was not going to be easy. The third princess sneered, if that's the case, father, why not let this star-crossed couple have their way? Zhu Yanxi looked at the third princess in shock, then turned his gaze to me. I smiled at him. Isn't this what you wanted? This was what I had asked the third princess for on the carriage ride here. At the time, she thought I had injured my face, but it was my mind that was broken. But I truly want to see. Zhu Yanxi and Tuya loved each other so deeply, with so many unavoidable hardships. Even my entire life was to become a stepping stone for their love. Now all obstacles are gone, with His Majesty personally bestowing the marriage. Can these two people still be the same as in their previous life? After everything was settled, Zhu Yanzhen stopped me at the palace gate. When did you return, and how much do you know? Does it matter? I silently looked at this man whom I had loved for a lifetime in my previous life. Since heaven has given us another chance, going our separate ways is the best choice. The third princess turned love into hatred. But what about you? Why did you help Tuya and me? Do you really not have me in your heart anymore? Turned love into hatred. The third princess happened to hear this when she came to see me off. She let out a heavy, cold laugh. Zhu Yanxi, you really think you're something. I only liked your handsome face before and thought you had some talent. Someone like you, I could summon a crowd with just a wave of my hand. Yaroa, it's time to go. Grandfather led me in thanking Lu Yun once more. I boarded the carriage, and after the curtain was lowered, I looked toward the figure standing beneath the palace wall. His tall figure was engulfed in the afterglow of the setting sun, his expression unclear. This was the second time he had helped me across 2 lifetimes. After Mother found out, she furiously smashed all the ornaments in the entire room. She, who had always been gentle, cursed at Zhu Yanxi with all her might. 2 despicable creatures. How dare they treat my Yaya so wretchedly? If Tuya had any brains and hadn't done such a foolish thing, wouldn't Yaya have truly fallen into their trap? Grandfather said, although I am no longer in official circles, I still have connections in the court. This matter will absolutely not be left unsettled. Grandfather had served through 3 dynasties, navigating the treacherous waters of officialdom for decades before retiring safely. In my previous life, Zhu Yanxi's feigned affection for me deceived everyone. Because of me, my grandfather provided him with considerable support in his official career. Zhu Yanxi thrived like a fish in water. And by the time I died, he had already risen to a high position. After my death, he took advantage of factional struggles to retreat in order to advance, abandoning his official post to wander the world. While enjoying a carefree and happy life with Tuya, he left behind numerous elegiac poems everywhere, pouring out his longing for me. Later, when the new emperor ascended the throne, he was recalled to the court, having already gained a reputation as a recluse of refined taste. Tuya also changed her name and surname, claiming to be his newlywed wife whom he had remarried. People say that Zhu Yanxi's love for his late wife runs so deep that even after remarrying, he did not seek out youthful beauty. Instead, they came together because of mutual understanding. Some even praised Tuya, saying she must be truly remarkable to have moved a man so devoted to his late wife. She must be gentle, kind-hearted, and exceptionally intelligent. He was able to return to the capital, and his mother was overjoyed. Not long after his return, Tuya became pregnant. The family was enjoying a harmonious and joyful time. I pulled back my thoughts. In this life, without grandfather's help, relying solely on his memories from his previous life, how high could Zhu Yanxi climb? My mother, having been angry and upset, then said to me earnestly, "Don't be afraid, Yaroa. This time, I will keep my eyes open and find you a man of good character." I froze for a moment. I whispered, "Mother, I don't want to marry." Truth be told, I never really wanted to marry that much. I was a carefree daughter and granddaughter, going to someone else's home, becoming their wife, their daughter-in-law. Before marrying Ju Yenshi in my previous life, I was also filled with apprehension. Mother sighed and said, "You can't let one bad experience make you overly cautious. Not all men are like that." I just looked at her silently. But Ju Yenshi and I grew up together. We've known each other since childhood and understood each other thoroughly. Even he could change his heart so easily. So why should I entrust my lifelong happiness to a complete stranger? You've been utterly spoiled by your grandfather. Child, a woman's place is to be raised properly at home, then marry, bear children, serve her in-laws, and respect her husband. This is the path laid out for us as women. Just because it has always been this way, does that make it right? Mother was taken aback, then softened her tone. Very well, perhaps I was being too hasty. We can discuss this matter another time. In the days that followed, I spent my time at home reading and painting, or assisting grandfather in reviewing and restoring ancient texts. One afternoon, grandfather said, "Are you afraid, Yaroa, that after marriage you'll have to serve your in-laws and husband, trapped in the trivial matters of the inner household, unable to do what you love? You've been following me since childhood, devoted to these things. Shall grandfather find you a good young man who shares your interests? According to the current laws, if a woman remains unmarried by the age of 17, the authorities will arrange a forced marriage for her." But grandfather said, "I only have you as my granddaughter. More than your lifelong commitment, I want Yaroa to be happy. If you are determined not to marry, shall I go ask His Majesty for a special favor?" Every word was filled with affection, but it was truly putting him in a difficult position. I didn't want to put my grandfather in such a difficult position. I thought again of that figure standing beneath the palace wall, bathed in the glow of the setting sun. I recalled all the things about him from my past life. Suddenly, infinite courage welled up in my heart. "Grandfather, there is someone I wish to marry. I want to go and ask him myself." I arranged to meet Lu Yun on a pleasure boat that offered excellent privacy. I got straight to the point, and his eyebrows twitched heavily. He waved his hands repeatedly. "Miss Ning, saving you that day was just a reflex. Marriage is a serious matter and should not be taken lightly. There are far better men than me in this great sheng." I handed him a handkerchief. The birds embroidered on it are lifelike. There is a phoenix crown, but only 2 long tail feathers trail behind. It is said to be a false phoenix, a true queen. Lu Yun's face gradually changed. His gaze sharpened in an instant, so piercing it made one tremble with fear. I didn't even doubt for a moment that, at that instant, he had the intention to kill. I quickly said, "A man's heart is fickle, even childhood sweethearts can change. I no longer wish to marry, Lord Lu. If you are willing to take me as your wife, I can help you maintain appearances." My gaze drifted past her, settling on the shimmering ripples of light on the water behind her. It was like seeing that dusk of the previous life, with the setting sun as red as blood. Ju Yenshi, for the sake of a reputation of deep affection, once said he would be buried with me. Later, Tuya grew very angry over this matter, and to appease her, Ju Yenshi opened the coffin and discarded my remains in a desolate mountain. It was Lu Yun, who was marching through the area, that could not bear to see the bones left exposed, so he gathered them and erected a tombstone. He's just a pitiful soul. My heart trembled at the kindness he showed beyond his ruthless nature. Only later did I realize it wasn't him after all. It was her. Lu Yun's father was from a foreign tribe, which is why she had such prominent features with a high nose bridge and deep-set eyes, along with a tall stature. In her previous life, she passed the military examinations, displaying both courage and strategy, and repeatedly achieved extraordinary feats. Under the pretense of the unstable borderlands and having no intention to marry, she rejected all those who were interested in her. But you can't wrap fire in paper, it eventually arouses suspicion. I still remember, after Lu Yun's death, my soul drifted everywhere, and I overheard people discussing this matter. It was originally just political rivals trying to frame her for embezzling military funds, but they couldn't resist probing further with ill intentions, only to discover that the most absurd speculation turned out to be the truth. She had already reached the pinnacle of a military commander's career. Had she been a man, she would have been met with endless adoration and prosperity. but because she is a woman. The more she achieves, the more she gains, the more she is at fault. They were unwilling to admit that a woman could actually do better than them, so she was executed before the army, and in the end, only a handful of people knew her true identity. Lu Yun stared at me for a long time. Why didn't you expose me? I breathed a sigh of relief. Because you abandoned the path set by the world for women, choosing instead a road that overlooks a bottomless abyss, besides helping myself. I also want to see how far a woman can go. Lu Yun was called by her grandfather to the study for a long conversation that lasted the entire afternoon. Afterward, her grandfather agreed to the marriage, just like in the previous life. After the 3 matchmakers and 6 betrothals, I stayed at home peacefully embroidering my wedding dress. Spring was in full bloom on the branches, and Xiao Dao ran in beaming with joy, holding a large box in her arms. "Miss, stop embroidering." Inside the box was a complete set of exquisitely embroidered wedding attire. "There is one more letter." I unfolded it and took a closer look. Lu Yun's handwriting was truly not very good. The preparations for a bride-to-be are too complicated. "I asked His Majesty for an imperial embroiderer to sew your wedding dress. There is still some time before the wedding. So Yaroa, spend more time with your grandfather and aunt." Mother looked at the wedding dress, smiling from ear to ear, and chided affectionately, "That child is truly sincere and thoughtful." The magpies on the branch are chirping, and my heart feels as if it's soaking in honey. Although I don't need to embroider a wedding dress, I do have some embroidery work in mind. The silk threads at home don't meet my satisfaction. But when I went out to shop, I ran into Zhu Yenji. He looked at me with a heavy gaze. "Yao Yao, are you really going to marry Lu Yun? I know you resent me, but search your heart and ask yourself, in our past life, aside from that one night on the grassland, I never visited brothels or took concubines. I protected you for a lifetime. Are you rejecting me for a rough man like Lu Yun? As for that sachet, my intention was only to spare you the suffering of childbirth. If you think all of it was an act, but I kept up that act for a lifetime. Wasn't that enough?" He spoke with such conviction that I almost laughed out loud. "Not to mention that each of these things is enough to sever the bond between us. You keep saying you'll protect me and everything. But Zhu Yenji, when have you ever put yourself in my shoes and thought about me?" He argued with my mother-in-law, seemingly protecting me. But the one being accused of lacking virtue and disrespecting my mother-in-law was me. The one who suffered 100-fold torment afterwards was me. Zhu Yenji averted his gaze for a moment. "I'm a man. I don't understand the intricate schemes of the women's quarters. I was just protecting you in my own way." I smiled bitterly. "But why is it that when Tulia also became a woman of the Zhu family, you treated her so differently?" He and Tulia had been married for some time. Mother and Xiao Dao were indignant. They often told me about the Zhu family's affairs. Feeling resentful and aggrieved, after the emperor bestowed the marriage, Zhu Yenshi somehow managed to appease Tuya again, and just like my grandfather, the chieftain of Chile, for the sake of his beloved youngest daughter, provided Zhu Yenshi with considerable assistance. Over time, he actually became quite successful and content. Zhu's mother was dissatisfied with her foreign background and was very critical from the start. Tuya was also unaccustomed to life in the capital. Every day, she had to boil fresh milk from cows and sheep. Zhu's mother found it smelly and gamey, but Zhu Yenjia claimed it was because he wanted to drink it. In Yelu Tuya's name, he presented various nourishing herbs from the grasslands to Mother Zhu. In his previous life, he had done countless such things for Yelu Tuya. You know very well that for the same matter, your mother would have completely different attitudes toward you and me, but when it comes to Yelu Tuya, you would take the blame upon yourself, and what you call protecting me only makes your mother despise me even more, making me tread on thin ice in the inner household. I've long wanted to ask you these questions face to face, and have you forgotten? The very reason your mother sees me as a thorn in her side, my inability to bear children, wasn't it all your doing? Zhu Yenshi opened his mouth, but no words came out. In the end, he could only let out a long sigh. "Since our fate in this life has come to an end, I won't force it anymore." He then changed the subject. "But Tuya is a free female eagle of the grasslands, yet because of your momentary anger, she is trapped here. Yaroa, this is what you owe her. I almost laughed in anger. In your previous life, you endured for 10 years before finally being with your beloved. Shouldn't you be thanking me now? Zhu Yanqi said. On the Shangxi festival that day, the matter could have been resolved quietly. But you insisted on making a scene. Now Chuya has fallen out of favor with the third princess, and no noble women dare to associate with her. The third princess believes in Buddhism. I recall you once restored a lost Buddhist scripture. He mentioned the Buddhist scriptures, and many things scattered deep in my memory resurfaced. My anger grew deeper, and I picked up the box in my hand and threw it at him. Zhu Yanqi was caught off guard and let out a pained groan. Ning Yao. His raised arm was firmly clamped by another hand. He couldn't break free. Lord Zhu, are you so blind that you can't see my fiancé doesn't want to chat with you? Lu Yun had suddenly appeared. She released him and stepped between me and Zhu Yanzhen. I then realized that her stature was actually a bit taller than Zhu Yanzhen's. Combined with her exotic features and stern, cold eyes, she was even more intimidating. Zhu Yanzhen, clutching his arm, was about to say something. But Lu Yun impatiently cut him off. Not everyone is as unreasonable and full of nonsense as you are. If you dare to stop Ning Yao and keep babbling again, be careful or I'll beat you up. Zhu Yanqi fell silent. He also had memories from his previous life. He knew that Lu Yunke was not one of those civil officials who only knew how to talk. I left together with Lu Yun. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Zhu Yanqi still standing there in a daze. I remembered in my previous life, I had also tried to repair that Buddhist scripture to ease the tension between my mother-in-law and me. My hand was cut by the horsehoof knife, and Zhu Yanqi was so distressed it nearly broke his heart. My mother-in-law had watched me grow up, even on the most contentious issue of heirs. She said that once the child was born, it would be registered under my name and then sent to the hometown to be raised, so it wouldn't affect the marital relationship between me and Zhu Yanqi. However, Zhu Yanqi used my name as an excuse to throw a huge tantrum. My mother-in-law wouldn't publicize it for the sake of his official reputation. She would only heap 100-fold more resentment upon me. Coupled with one incident after another that followed, she felt I had become twisted in character and grew increasingly disgusted with me. The day before my mother-in-law's birthday celebration, that Buddhist scripture vanished without a trace. She became even more convinced that I was full of lies. It was only after my death that I learned Zhu Yanqi had someone steal the Buddhist scriptures and give them to Chuya, in order to curry favor with another noble who also believed in Buddhism. When he mentioned it, he said, "Since mother already despises Ning Yao, there's no need for reconciliation. Otherwise, after you enter the household, if my mother remembers Ning Yao's virtues and dislikes you, what would you do?" Muttering softly, he considered every detail to the extreme. "It's just a pity. It wasn't for me." Lu Yun asked me what I was going out to buy, and I kept him guessing. A month later, on our wedding night, after the guests had left and the red candles were burning brightly, I took out a pair of knee pads. A little embarrassed, I said, "I heard that in the northern regions, it snows as early as August. I made these for you myself. The border conflicts are intensifying, and although Lu Yun has just gotten married, he will soon be heading off to battle." Lu Yun examined it carefully. "Thank you, I really like it." She cleared her throat lightly. "I'll sleep in the outer room. I'm a light sleeper. So if you need anything, just call for me anytime." As she was about to leave, I grabbed her arm. "We're both women. Why are you avoiding me?" She could no longer refuse. Someone who was originally so heroic and spirited actually started to undress with a shy, hesitant manner. I stared, my eyes growing wider and wider. "Lord Lu, your arms are so strong. No wonder you're so skilled at archery." As I spoke, I reached out and poked her arm. Lu Yun instinctively tensed up. It's hard." The red candles on the candlestick burned shorter and shorter, but Lu Yun's ears were flushed red. "All right, let's sleep." Lu Yun had never met his father, and his mother had already passed away. After marrying her, my life was practically no different from before the wedding. She left early and returned late every day, sometimes coming back with injuries. In the past, she always tended to them herself, and I also learned to treat some common bumps and bruises. Some tasks that were inconvenient for the doctors were handled by me instead. On the day of the homecoming visit, seeing Lu Yun and I getting along harmoniously, My mother couldn't stop smiling. In private, she pulled me aside and said, "It's a good thing I didn't agree to you marrying that Jew fellow. He's having a hard time now." Mother said that Tuya has quite a temper. The virtue of filial piety that suppresses women of Darshang holds no power over a woman from a different tribe. I yielded at every turn. While Tuya could openly quarrel with Ju's mother, in the previous life, Tuya traveled far and wide with Ju Yenshi, and by the time they returned to the capital, she was already over 30 and pregnant. Ju's mother treated her with great caution. She even told outsiders, "Although my new daughter-in-law is from a different tribe, she is much more sensible than that so-called well-educated Ning Yao." Not long after the child was born, Ju's mother passed away, so the two of them actually didn't spend much time together as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. And now, without me as a point of comparison, even though Ju Yenshi tried to mediate, the two of them gradually became like fire and water. Every time Ju Yenshi came home, one would pull him aside to complain about her unfilial daughter-in-law, while the other would drag him away to say she couldn't stand life in the capital and wanted to return to the grasslands. Slowly, Ju Yenji would rather drink with colleagues late into the night than go home. If I had heard these words in my previous life, right after learning the truth, I would have felt immense satisfaction. But now, my heart is reserved for more important people and matters. There is no extra space left for grudges and hatred. Grandfather was practicing calligraphy in the study, while Lu Yun was practicing swordplay beneath the white plum tree. She glanced over and happened to meet my gaze, yet she abruptly averted her eyes. I deliberately teased her in front of Mother, calling out, "Husband, come have a cup of tea." In an instant, Lu Yun's sword lost its direction and slashed toward the white plum blossoms on the branch. Plum blossoms fell all over his body. I deliberately took out paper and brush. In the 30th year of Dayong's Yongyuan era, Lu Yun practiced swordplay in the courtyard. Suddenly hearing his wife's words, he mistakenly cut the branch of the white plum tree, causing the jade-like petals to scatter and cover him like snow. Lu Yun found it somewhat amusing. "Yaroa, what are you writing?" I said slyly. "Please call me Historian Ning. I'm writing your biography." The biography of Lu Yun. Ju Yenshi seemed unable to stand seeing me live well. He sent someone to deliver a message to me. "Do you think Lu Yun is some kind of good man? Yeah, you need to understand that all men are cast from the same mold." 3 days later, a banquet was held at Xinghua Tower. Everyone else had entertainers to accompany them, but only Lu Yun and Ju Yenjin remained unmoved. Ju Yenjin lowered his gaze, pouring and drinking by himself, occasionally casting glances toward the screen where I was hiding. Lu Yun directly refused. "Military orders prohibit drinking." "Then let Chun Xing accompany you and sing a tune for Lord Lu." Lu Yun declined again, when Ju Yenshi suddenly spoke up. "Lord Lu is so indifferent to women. Is it because your wife at home is jealous?" Someone else chimed in. "Lord Lu's wife is Ning Yao, who was once engaged to Lord Ju, out of sheer jealousy. She caused Lord Ju's admirer to be slapped in public by the princess, but in the end, her scheme backfired. Lord Ju ended up marrying that very woman. With such a narrow-minded disposition, I wouldn't want to marry that kind of woman either. It seems Minister Lu got a lucky break. Ha ha ha." At present, Lu Yun is still just an ordinary lieutenant general. Many of these people are Ju Yenji's former colleagues and old friends, deliberately making things difficult for him. I'm growing a bit impatient with Ju Yenji's tricks. I had previously told Lu Yun, "If anyone sends you any songstresses or entertainers, just use my jealousy as an excuse to refuse. When more time has passed, if anyone questions the lack of heirs, I'll shift the blame to Ju Yenji, saying it was caused by that sachet." In my previous life, Ju Yenji often encountered similar situations, and every time, he would put on an act of being a devoted husband who fears his wife. Not to mention that my heart belongs only to Yaroa, but if she were to find out, I'm afraid I'd have to sleep in the study tonight. Over time, my reputation for jealousy spread far and wide. I didn't want Lu Yun to be mocked because of me. Anyway, having been reborn, I didn't care about reputation. Ju Yenshi beckoned, and several singing girls came forward, some plump, some slender, each with their own charm. There was even one holding a peeper, bearing some resemblance to me. I sneered at him for going to such lengths just to prove that Lu Yun was not a good man. Unfortunately, he had targeted the wrong person. Lu Yun was indeed not a good man. She is a woman. Zhu Yanji and another official surnamed Song played off each other. Lord Lu, why not take one? If you like her, just keep her outside. Even if the one at home is jealous, she won't know. The singing girl, soft and boneless, tried to press herself against him, but Lu Yun dodged and cast a cold glance their way. My wife doesn't allow me to take a concubine, not out of jealousy, but to protect my reputation. If I recall correctly, Lord Song was recently impeached by the censor for accepting bribes through his favored concubine, wasn't he? The man's face stiffened, and he closed his mouth resentfully. She then turned to Zhu Yanxi. We martial artists don't have so many cunning schemes. In the army, a word is a word, and that's how one should conduct themselves. Since I, Lu Yun, have married Ning Yao, I will be devoted to her wholeheartedly, she implied meaningfully. I cannot be like you, Lord Zhu, saying one thing to someone's face and doing another behind their back. Zhu Yanji's expression gradually darkened. Lu Yun drained his cup of tea and left the table directly. I also prepared to leave through the back door. Yaroa, Zhu Yanji called out to me from inside the door, half shrouded in shadow. A newlywed couple may hold fast, but what man doesn't stray? Just wait and see. I paused, turned around, and stared at him steadily. Is it really that important for you to prove that I wouldn't be happy marrying someone else? Zhu Yanxi was stunned. I looked at him coldly. You're just unwilling to accept it, but your unwillingness means nothing to me. Whether I live well or not has nothing to do with you. Lu Yun stood with her arms crossed, leaning against the carriage, her gaze fixed on us like a hawk's under the moonlight. It seemed that if Zhu Yanxi continued to pester her, she was ready to throw a punch. I strode towards Lu Yun, leaving behind only these words. Zhu Yanji, when will you finally understand? In this lifetime, we have long become strangers. 2 months later, Lu Yun followed the general on an expedition to the western regions. I happened to possess a half-volume remnant of a medical classic that had come from the western regions. When seeing Lu Yun off, I casually mentioned it. In my previous life, I had occasionally asked Zhu Yanxi to find books for me. He agreed, but then made me witness his argument with my mother-in-law. She's so arrogant precisely because she doesn't read admonitions for women and models for women. Why are you still finding her miscellaneous books? Zhu Yanjin talked back, and my mother-in-law gave me an even worse look. After that, I never brought it up again. Military operations cannot be taken lightly, so I didn't hold out much hope, but Lu Yun nodded seriously and said, I've noted it down. I live my life as usual. Every now and then, I go home to accompany my mother and grandfather. But one evening, without even looking up, I instructed Xiaodao, bring me that bottle of medicinal wine. Xiaodao asked curiously, the master has gone off to battle. Miss, what do you need the medicinal wine for? My hand paused as I suddenly realized, it had only been a few short months, yet I had already grown accustomed to having Lu Yun by my side. Mother occasionally mentioned Zhu Yanxi and Tuya to me. Tuya was pregnant. He became sensitive and suspicious. One day, he even burst into a banquet attended by Zhu Yanxi and his colleague Shangguan, grabbing the singing girl who was entertaining and causing a huge scene. This made Zhu Yanxi extremely embarrassed. Come to think of it, that makes sense. In their previous life, they had abandoned their responsibilities and only needed to enjoy the beauty of love. But in this life, their passion was gradually worn away by trivial matters and arguments. How much of it could possibly remain? After 2 months of marching, military reports came back. Lu Yun was missing. The military report said she led a small elite force, marching across the highlands, advancing deep into enemy territory alone, and launching a long-distance raid. It could be said she committed every taboo in the art of war. His Majesty was furious. My grandfather comforted me, saying that good people are protected by heaven. My heart was filled with trepidation. This matter had never occurred in my previous life. I thought of the request I had made to Lu Yun before leaving, and I was overwhelmed with self-reproach. Inside the Fahua temple, I knelt for a long time before the Buddha with lowered eyes and a composed expression, silently praying for Lu Yun's safe return. Just as I stepped out of the main hall, I saw Zhu Yanzhen standing under the tree. The tree in the courtyard was covered with red strings and wooden plaques tied by devotees for blessings. He looked up, catching hold of one of the faded wooden plaques, Mei Ning Yarrow and Zhu Yanxi. The lovers finally unite in marriage, loving each other without doubt. He whispered it softly. I vaguely remembered that it should have been tied by my own hands when I came of age. He stood there, his gaze seemingly traversing through the long passage of time, through the flesh. He looked at Ning Yarrow from his previous life, who had been wholeheartedly devoted to him. His voice was somewhat hoarse. If Lu Yun doesn't come back, what do you plan to do? What does it have to do with you? Before I could speak, Tuya's voice said exactly what I was thinking. She appeared out of nowhere, touching her stomach and staring gloomily at me and Zhu Yanxi. Zhu Yanxi frowned. The mountain road is difficult. Aren't you afraid of danger while pregnant? Tuya sneered. If I hadn't come, wouldn't I have missed the chance to see you pouring your heart out to your old flame? Madam Zhu, don't make baseless accusations. Baseless, she laughed hysterically. This man was drunk and talking in his sleep, saying things like if he had married you, it would never have been like this. I exclaimed in shock. Zhu Yanxi, are you crazy? You got what you've been longing for, and now you regret it. I regret it. His voice was so soft that I almost thought I had misheard. He took a deep breath, as if suddenly making up his mind about something. If I hadn't been foolish, our marriage would have been harmonious for life. It's not too late now. Lu Yun is probably dead. I'll beg His Majesty to grant me a divorce from Tuya. Would you still be willing to marry me? Upon hearing this, Tuya burst into tears and rushed forward to claw at him. Zhu Yanxi, because of you, I was forced to leave the grasslands. Confined to this estate every day, tormented by your mother. I even carry your child, and now you want to abandon me. Calm down, don't act like a jealous shrew. Tuya was taken aback, her face turning as pale as paper. Then she burst into hysterical laughter. Ha 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 ha, a jealous woman. I've actually become a jealous woman. Zhu Yanzhi, don't even think about getting rid of me. You were the one who said you liked me and wanted to marry me. How dare you regret it now? I had no intention of getting further involved in this farce. I turned and left. Zhu Yanzhi was right, the mountain path was indeed difficult to walk. But Tuya still ran up the stairs with her big belly for Zhu Yanzhi, as if doing so could prevent her husband from shifting his affections to someone else, just like how people always romanticize the path they didn't take, but once they actually walk it, they start to regret it. As I descended the mountain, a drizzling rain began to fall. In the capital, it was only early autumn, yet the rain had already brought a chill. Was Lu Yun feeling the cold out there in the borderlands? History does not repeat every detail. Was it because of me that Lu Yun encountered danger? My eyes grew increasingly sore, and I couldn't quite tell whether it was tears or rain on my face. Just then, an umbrella appeared, blocking the scattered raindrops and shielding me from the rain. I looked up in surprise to see Lu Yun's tall figure standing perfectly fine right in front of me. I returned from my debriefing and found you weren't at home or at the Ning residence. I guessed you might be here. I could hardly utter a word. I followed her home in a daze. After washing up, Lu Yun took out the remaining half of the incomplete manuscript from the brocade box. I had words stuck in my throat but still managed to ask, was it for this book that you took the risk? She was taken aback for a moment, then chuckled softly. What are you thinking, Yarrow? Finding books for you was just a side task. She let out a long sigh, stretched out her long arm, and paused for a moment. In the end, it only landed on my shoulder, giving it 2 gentle pats. Don't take it all upon yourself, although I promised you and will definitely keep my word. I'm not foolish enough to act recklessly. Grandfather is also here. He said Lu Yun had accomplished a great feat, although she was marching through highlands with complex terrain. She had planned the route in advance to avoid getting lost. She advanced deep into enemy territory alone, without supplies, but had previously allowed the soldiers to carry silken horses to ensure logistical support. The soldiers were exhausted, and she led by example, cutting down the enemy commander from his horse with a single strike. Finally, he said meaningfully, this child has a boundless future, but the premise of a boundless future is that Lu Yun's identity must never be exposed. In her previous life, her indifference to women aroused speculation. In this life, she married me. Although she was tall and androgynous, with even a somewhat prominent Adam's apple, there were still some aspects that might arouse suspicion. Half a month later, I handed her a medicine bottle. Lu Yun looked up with a questioning gaze. I said, "This is recorded in the half-volume of the medicinal compendium you found for me. Taking it regularly can make the voice low and hoarse like a man's. And it doesn't harm the body." Lu Yun had grown accustomed to speaking with a suppressed voice, and over time, her throat repeatedly suffered from heat-related ailments. She looked at me for a long time. I was starting to feel a bit uncomfortable when her smile suddenly bloomed. "I see you were looking for the pharmacopoeia for my sake." Even though I knew she was a woman, I still found her smile utterly captivating. Outside the window, autumn was at its peak. Lu Yun, who had practiced martial arts for years, held my hand with his large, calloused ones. "You are truly wonderful, Yaroa." I also smiled and said, "You treat me well, so naturally I treat you well in return. We must be good sisters for a lifetime." In the years that followed, Lu Yun repeatedly achieved great merits and shone brilliantly in the military. For Lu Yun's secret, when my mother brought up the issue of heirs, both openly and subtly, I bribed the physician to place all the blame on Zhu Yanxi. After my grandfather entered the palace to see the emperor, Zhu Yanxi was sent away to serve as a provincial governor in a distant region, a promotion in name, but a demotion in reality. The state is remote, plagued by bandits and rampant diseases. The previous governor died while in office. In this life, without his grandfather's help, Zhu Yanxi relied on memories from his past life to form alliances and scheme his way up. But Lu Yun's situation proves that not all history will repeat itself. He backed the wrong side, and his grandfather's disciples repeatedly attacked him. In his official career, he achieved nothing remarkable. Without me as a stepping stone, he also failed to gain a reputation for deep affection and loyalty. Leaving the capital brought Tuya much joy, yet in just a few short years, the vertical lines between her eyebrows had deepened sharply. Her first child with Zhu Yanxi was lost due to an argument. Zhu Yanxi held the horse's reins, watching me from afar. In just a few short years, he no longer possessed the high spirits of his previous life. The hardships of life had etched bitterness onto his face. Looking at our intertwined hands, he suddenly smiled with a sense of relief. "Yaroa, I don't know when I'll be able to return to the capital. From now on, we truly will be strangers," Lu Yun said coldly. "Yaroa is not a name you are worthy of calling." Zhu Yanxi smiled and looked at Tuya beside him again. "This time, you're with me again." I knew he was thinking of the previous life, but Tuya didn't understand, only looking at him with resentment. In the end, they became a resentful couple. But from now on, no matter how they torment each other, it has nothing to do with me. From Zhu Yanxi's alliances and allegiances over the past few years, I have roughly inferred. From which year did he return after being reborn? So he doesn't know. My soul watched him live out his entire life. In the year he approached 40, the new emperor suddenly suffered a stroke, unable even to speak. The court was in turmoil, with everyone harboring their own hidden agendas. The third princess, who had been practicing Buddhism in Jiangnan, suddenly returned to the capital. Eliminate the villains with thunderous means. While acting as regent, she heard the story of Zhu Yanxia and Tuya, which reminded her of some past events. After a thorough investigation, she flew into a rage. In her previous life, Zhu Yanxia and Tuya were eventually executed after the autumn assizes. I silently prayed for him in my heart, hoping that once he took up his post, he would live to the same age as in his previous life. I knew Lu Yun's secret, so, in the 5th year of our marriage, I also told her my greatest secret, with the knowledge of history I possessed. Lu Yun gained great advantages in both the official circles and the battlefield. It was also in this year that she and I made a very risky decision. We told the third princess the truth. That year during the Shangxi festival, a woman who could seize the opportunity and, together with His Majesty, forced the chieftain of Chile to cede territory and pay reparations, a woman capable of stabilizing the situation and cleansing the imperial court. How could one be content with a solitary lamp and ancient Buddha? Or is it that one can only use the matters of Zen to suppress the ambitions that cannot be spoken aloud? After all, paper cannot wrap fire. Lu Yun, and I need the third princess. Though it is very risky, I indeed did not misjudge. The third princess was so shocked she was left speechless, her face changing colors several times. But in the end, she entered the palace. No one knows what she said. But His Majesty summoned Lu Yun for an all-night talk. And he emerged completely unscathed. Moreover, she could continue serving as her general. His Majesty is focused on expanding the borders. In a time when talent is needed, why would he cling to such trivial matters? Moreover, Lu Yun is a woman, the third princess said meaningfully. But fortunately, she is just a woman. I pondered these words, looking up at her, only to see the third princess gazing at the vast sky beyond the palace walls. She murmured to herself, "So, it could be like this. Yaoa, let's go home." I waited outside the palace gate all night, and Lu Yun took my hand. I smiled and nodded. Grandfather has acquired another batch of rare books that were scattered and lost during the final years of the previous dynasty, and he urgently wants me to return to help sort them out. Lu Yun is about to go on another expedition soon and must return to the training ground to drill the troops. In her previous life, she died in the war with the Qiong kingdom, and after her death, the great Shang dynasty was defeated. We failed to reclaim the land and people that had been occupied by the Qiong kingdom. In this life, I saw ambition blazing in Lu Yun's eyes. She aspired to conquer the world on horseback and make all nations bow in tribute, and when I said I would write the biography of Lu Yun for her, it was no jest. I will use my words and my paintings to record all of this. Even if her identity might be erased 100 years later, her achievements buried and forgotten. Yet one day, someone will open the graves of me and Lu Yun, and witness the magnificent, legendary life she lived. The azure clouds praise gracefulness, as I climb towards the towering peaks. The end, and so the first story ends. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like. Now, here's the second story. On the day I parted from Zun Jinyun, I set off back to Yunmeng. In my bundle, a set of coarse linen clothes, a plain hair ribbon, and I plucked a blooming flower from the lotus pond in the courtyard. This was all I had brought when I came to the capital. The old maidservant of the Duchess watched me closely, afraid I might take even a single needle or thread from the estate. The young master went to the Imperial College today, and the young miss went to the private school. If you wish to see them one more time, no need. For the last time, I spoke with gentle obedience. Do not let such trivial matters interfere with their studies. Carrying my bundle, I walked out, passing through one gate after another. The clouds were thick today, and the wind was strong. With each door I passed through, more sunlight broke through the clouds, and I couldn't help but chase the light, my steps growing lighter and quicker, until one foot stepped out of the Duke's mansion. I turned to look at the old nanny. A faint smile, long absent, bloomed once again at the corners of my eyes and brows. Please tell Zun Jinyun that in this lifetime, Luo Yao and he shall never meet again, whether in life or death. Leaving the Duke's mansion and standing on the street, I felt lost for quite a while. Since I entered the mansion to propose marriage 5 years ago, I had not stepped outside its gates even once in all those years. Life as a secluded woman in a deep mansion had almost worn away my connection to this bustling, mortal world. Fortunately, it was only 5 years, not 10 or 20. I first found an inn to stay at and took out a few pieces of broken silver to give to the innkeeper. I wished to head south. Is there a way? The innkeeper took the silver, raised an eyebrow, and said, "For a young lady traveling alone, you're not reckless." I smiled faintly. This inn was located in the busiest part of the capital, and the innkeeper had the most extensive network of local connections. The innkeeper said, "The land route is dangerous, the roads are no place for a young woman. If you want to travel safely, you must take the water route. The Canal Guild operates long boats specifically for officials' wives and young ladies visiting family or friends every 3 days. If you have the silver, getting a ticket shouldn't be too difficult." I still had some silver left, but not much. If I spent it all here, I would likely be strapped for cash by the time I reached Yunmeng. After only a moment's thought, I took out a flawless jade disc from my bosom. The moment the shopkeeper laid eyes on the jade disc, his eyes widened in astonishment. I wish to trade this jade disc for two things from you. First, a boat ticket heading south to Yunmeng. Second, my safety until I board the ship. The last southbound longship set sail yesterday, and the next one won't depart for another 2 days. During these 2 days, the first day was calm and peaceful, but the second day was filled with noise and commotion. I pushed open a crack in the window to look at the street, and saw officials from the Dali Temple everywhere. Since Sun Jinyun took charge of the Dali Temple 3 years ago, the capital had been peaceful for a long time, and even the emperor had praised this during the New Year's feast. Later, when the waiter brought the meal, he specifically warned, perhaps something major has happened. Today, officials from the Dali Temple are conducting a citywide search. The innkeeper specifically instructed that you must not leave the room. Tomorrow morning, he will personally escort you to the ferry outside the city. That night, although I had locked the doors and windows, the light from the torches held by the officers in the streets still seeped through the paper-covered windows, casting shadows into the room. I thought to myself, Sun Jinyun must have encountered a major case, but he was intelligent and composed, dignified and clear-minded. With everything under his control, his eyes and heart filled with the chill of frost and snow, the epitome of a noble scion. This was how it should be, how it ought to be. The next day, as dawn broke faintly in the sky, I sat in the inn's carriage. When the city gates opened, the innkeeper slipped some silver to the guards on duty, and the carriage slowly made its way out of the capital's gates. I sat in the carriage and seemed to hear a loud cry from outside, "Do not be alarmed, miss." The innkeeper leaned close to the carriage curtain and whispered, "Word has come from the city that the gates are to be closed, but we have already made it out. We will reach the ferry in a moment." As I stepped out of the carriage, it began to rain outside. I held the boat ticket, and after it was verified, I boarded the ship. The innkeeper accepted the 1,000 taels of jade by and, with some conscience, provided a room that, though not as spacious as those for officials' families, was clean and tidy. 3 gong sounds came from outside, and the man and woman shouted in unison, "Dragon King, grant us safety." Feeling the boat sway slightly, I couldn't resist pushing open the wooden window to gaze at the misty, rain-shrouded city of Kyoto. 5 years ago, my heart leaped with joy. Now, it's as still as stagnant water. But just as I was about to close the wooden window, I suddenly saw a figure rushing swiftly through the rain. In such heavy rain, that person is bound to be drenched from head to toe. I don't know who to give it to, but no matter who it is, it's already too late. I returned to Yunmeng. With just 3 taels of silver, I bought a small courtyard by the lotus pond. I put up a fence, covered it with flowering vines, and planted melons and fruits. I resumed my work of gathering herbs, spending my days digging for medicinal plants in the mountains and studying medical books in the evenings. That day, as usual, I went up the mountain and found a boy covered in blood among the scattered rocks. His arms, legs, and half of his abdomen had been torn by wild beasts, with his internal organs barely visible, yet he was still alive, fortunately. I had collected some hemostatic herbs that day. After applying the medicine and bandaging his wounds, I brought him back to my home. I thought with such severe injuries, it would be hard for him to survive. Yet, against all odds, he endured 7 days and nights of high fever, and on the morning of the 8th day, he opened his eyes, dark and clear, like a lotus pond, pure and untainted. "Who are you?" He spoke weakly, murmuring, "Is she my mother? Then who am I?" From that day on, a child named Luo Union appeared in the small courtyard. Luo Union could escape from the jaws of wild beasts, his temperament comparable to that of a young wolf cub. He was an orphan of unknown origin, and I was a newly arrived widow. Inevitably, we became the subject of gossip. Compared to the rumors in the Duke's residence, such idle talk was nothing but a minor annoyance to me. Yet Luo Union refused to yield an inch. I was bathing in the evening when I heard a commotion outside, followed by a scream. When I rushed out, I saw Yunai grabbing a broom, fiercely beating a drunkard who had fallen down. Since then, every time I bathed, he would bring a small stool and sit in front of my door. "Mother is not alone. I can protect you." Uni would get up before dawn every day, carrying bucket after bucket to fill the water vat, washing rice to cook porridge, and drying herbs in the sun. Only when the sun was high in the sky would he come to wake me for breakfast. He would feed the leftover broken rice and coarse grains, mixed with tender grass and vegetable leaves, to the chickens and ducks. He reinforced the fence with thin hemp rope, and carrying a bundle of thatch, climbed onto the roof to make repairs. "You don't have to do all this, I'm the mother." "Precisely because you're the mother," Uni said matter-of-factly as he placed a shelled egg into my bowl. "It's only natural for a son to take care of his mother." I thought of my son and daughter far away in Kyoto. After the 2 children were born, they were taken to the old madam to be raised and educated. Only on my birthday each year would they come to pay their respects and see me, their every gesture and movement meticulously trained, yet filled with an overwhelming sense of distance. I divided the egg into 2 halves and gave one to him. A mother taking care of her son is only natural. Seeing me smiling cheerfully, Unai lowered his head and took a bite, eating half the egg in one go. Not long after, I sent Unai to the village school. The rural school was full of mischievous children, but Unai was different from the others. He always sat upright and studied with great care. The old teacher, impressed by his composed demeanor, often kept him after class to teach him many things in private. During a heavy snowfall, I worried that he would have a hard time returning home, so I took an umbrella to meet him. Just as I reached the school gate, I heard the old teacher ask, "Why are you so diligent?" Unai's voice was young yet steady. "I know I am not her biological child, but my mother raised me alone with more love than any birth mother could. If I do not strive to make a name for myself and ensure her peace and well-being, how can I ever repay her kindness?" I looked up at the snow falling thick and fast across the sky. Though the cold was biting, my heart felt warm. The sun rose and set. The moon waxed and waned. Uni advanced from the village school to the township school. Because of his excellent academic performance and minor reputation for talent, he was exempted from tuition fees. Unai had a 10-day break every 7 days, during which he could return home from the city. "Mother, I ranked first again in the recent 10-day examination, making it 7 consecutive times. The headmaster said that in a few days, a high-ranking official will come to select students to study at the Imperial College in the capital, and I am among those selected. He asked me to invite you into the city to discuss this matter. This is a tremendous opportunity." After the 10-day holiday, I entered the city with Unai. The academy dean was very courteous to me, repeatedly telling me how outstanding, intelligent, and promising Unai was. The official from the capital has been searching through Yunmeng like a sieve for 3 consecutive years, yet not a single person has caught his eye. This official not only evaluates the students' knowledge but also their parents' character, for Unai's future. I hope Madame Luo will handle this properly. I nodded and followed the headmaster to the front of the Wenyuan pavilion at the academy. The headmaster whispered at the door, "Sir, Madame Luo, Unai's mother, has arrived." The 2 large doors swung open, and I straightened my dress before walking in slowly. "This humble woman, Luo Yao, pays her respects to your lordship." Just as I was about to kneel on both knees, I suddenly heard a sharp gasp and the shattering sound of a teacup hitting the ground. Instinctively, I looked up and met a familiar gaze, dazed, stunned, and then, an endless silence. They said we would never meet again in life or death. Yet I never expected there would come a day when we would see each other once more. He had lost weight, his back was slender, his face thinner, and the frosty aura between his brows had grown even more pronounced. Step by step, he walked toward me, his elegant jaw tightly clenched, his dark eyes faintly tinged with a bloody hue. I lowered my gaze and, as was proper, knelt on both knees. "This humble woman, my lord, it is only right, it should be so." Luo Yao. Zun Jinyun seemed both resentful and anguished as he harshly called out my name. Joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness, so it turns out he is capable of anger. I and Zun Jinyun are like mud compared to a clear cloud. Back then, Duke Zun was severely injured and ended up in Yunmeng, where my father saved him. Grateful for the life-saving grace, Duke Zun left a token as a promise to repay the favor someday. Because my father had treated Duke Zun, he encountered disaster and, before his death, urged me to go north to the capital to seek refuge. After enduring countless hardships and narrowly escaping death, I finally arrived at the Duke's residence. Upon hearing that my father had died because of him, Duke Zun wept uncontrollably, saying he owed a great debt. He expressed that I, in the bloom of my youth, had no one to rely on, and the only way to make it up to my father was to arrange a good marriage for me, promising a lifetime of peace and stability. Thus, he arranged for me to meet Zun Jinyun. In the winter, I stood under the corridor and saw a slender, elegant figure approaching from afar. The sky is filled with white snow, a figure in blue robes and fox fur, standing tall like a slender bamboo, elegant as a jade tree. When I saw Zun Jinyun, it was like catching a glimpse of a crane in the snow. Such a peerless and extraordinary figure, it was only natural to feel admiration in my heart, yet I knew that he and I were not a match. I declined the old Duke's offer and proposed a reward of 1,000 taels of silver and a shop in the capital, which I found quite satisfactory. Since childhood, I have studied medicine with my father and held great aspirations. A stable life has never been difficult for me. My desires have always been modest, as long as they suffice. Due to my straightforward request, the old madam and the Zun family members, who were already dissatisfied with the marriage arrangement, began making insinuations, accusing me of exploiting their gratitude for personal gain. But at least she has some self-awareness. How could a country girl like her ever dare to aspire to a young master raised in a century-old prestigious family? Besides, who in the capital doesn't know that Jinyun and the beloved daughter of Prince Hui are childhood sweethearts, deeply in love, and only waiting for the princess to come of age before the betrothal gifts are sent and they marry? They are a perfect match. A golden boy and a jade girl. What is she? A country bumpkin who can't even tell shark fin from vermicelli, doing meddling in this. I never intended to meddle in this matter. Seeing my determination, the old Duke agreed that after the Mid-Autumn Festival, he would prepare the silver and shops for me to leave the estate. On the night of the full moon on the 15th of August, the Duke's mansion was adorned with lanterns and colorful decorations. The old madam took charge and invited many noble ladies from prominent families to stroll together in the waterside pavilion of the detached courtyard. With the princess leading the group, I picked up a mooncake, avoided the crowd, and sat by the pond to admire the moon, when suddenly I was pushed into the water by a force. I was from Yunmeng and originally knew how to swim, but the incident happened so suddenly that a cramp seized my leg, leaving me unable to exert any strength. Just as I was about to drown, a figure in snow white leaped into the pond. I choked on water, my consciousness fading, clinging instinctively and holding on tightly. When I could see clearly again, all I saw was a chest soaked through, the gauze garment clinging tightly to it, and lanterns bright enough to light up half the Duke's residence, surrounded by layers of men and women inside and out. They say that because I fell into the water and Zun Jinyun saved me. My wet clothes clinging to my body meant I had lost my purity. But in Yunmeng, everyone lives by the water, digging lotus roots, catching fish, men and women alike. Their clothes are rarely dry for more than a few days. What does that have to do with purity? The more I tried to explain, the darker everyone's expressions grew. The old Duke publicly announced that Zun Jinyun and I would be married in 3 days. Caught off guard, it wasn't just me. The expressions on everyone's faces, which they had no time to conceal, remain vivid to this day. The old lady was furious, the young ladies were filled with disgust, the maids and old women looked on with contempt. The princess felt a multitude of emotions: resentment, regret, sorrow, despair, envy, and hatred. Only Zun Jinyun, with his pale, handsome face, showed not a trace of emotion. Like a solitary snow crane soaring high in the clouds, he had accidentally stepped into the mire. At that time, the mud didn't know its place. Thinking it had captured the snow crane, never imagining that this small world would be trampled to pieces, the hall of literary profundity was utterly silent. I knelt on the ground, kowtowing in salute, remaining completely still. Zun Jinyun seemed to restrain himself, uttering only one word before pausing. After a long moment, he finally spoke in a deep voice. "Is there anything you wish to say to me?" Without raising my head, I replied respectfully, "My son, Yunai has been intelligent since childhood, filial and responsible. Moreover, he has lofty aspirations. I hope you will favor and appreciate him. You and I have been separated for 3 years. Yet Luo Yunai is already 9 years old. Zun Jinyun's voice was as cold and still as a deep pool. Is he your stepson? A person who has always been aloof and detached, even with the power of thunder, remains expressionless. Yet I could sense the suppressed danger and tension in that seemingly casual question. After a moment's thought, I answered truthfully, he is not my stepson. Yuni is my adopted son. After a long pause, Zun Jinyun let out a light hum, his tone softening slightly. Since he is your adopted son, he is also related to me. I should naturally, Your Excellency, I softly interrupted him, slowly raising my head to look at Zun Jinyun. Yunai has nothing to do with you. Neither does this common woman. I returned to Yunmeng and finally did what I wanted to do, become a midwife. Because I knew medicine, I could not only deliver babies but also treat women's illnesses. Gradually, I gained some reputation in the surrounding villages. After returning from the city to the countryside, I was busy with deliveries and had no time for anything else. How difficult and dangerous it is for a woman to conceive and give birth, especially during this rare auspicious month. When there are more women giving birth than usual, another round of the 10-day holiday arrived, and Yunai returned home. For 2 nights without sleep, he cut herbs, brewed medicine, and shaped pills, preparing over a dozen bottles of hemostatic pills. I took a moment to ask if Zun Jinyun had given him a hard time. He didn't give me a hard time, but he kept asking me about my mother. Yuni looked at me. Is he an old acquaintance of mother's? I lowered my gaze and softly acknowledged. Yuni asked again, does mother dislike him? After receiving another affirmative reply, Yuni nodded. I understand, mother. Since then, Yunai never asked about Zun Jinyun again. Another 10 days passed in such tranquility. When they saw Zun Jinyun again, the procession and carriage of the current Duke of the State stirred up the small Yunmeng countryside. Yunai jumped down from the carriage with a cold expression, followed closely by servants placing a lacquered red and gold-painted footstool beside the vehicle. Zun Jinyun and the 2 children got out of the car together. They were a pair of exquisitely beautiful twins, a sister and brother, with outstanding looks. Their facial features bore no resemblance to me, having inherited all of Zun Jinyun's good looks. Mother, Yunai ran toward me, positioning himself in front of me. I noticed red marks on his wrist from being grabbed and pulled, and my heart ached instantly. Zun Jinyun glanced at me, then lowered his gaze and said to the 2 children, go on. The twins seemed a bit reluctant, but they obediently walked toward me. As for me, I just felt cold all over. Shivering uncontrollably, I have walked through the gates of death countless times for them. The fear of life slipping away from my body as I bled uncontrollably during childbirth remains vivid in my memory to this day. It's not that I never experienced the deep affection of a parent for their child. I once sneaked into their courtyard on a snowy night and built 4 snowmen, so they would see them as soon as they stepped outside, a family of 4, with both father and mother present. I also did not hesitate to cut my flesh and draw blood when my daughter had a high fever that wouldn't break, and medicine failed to work. I blindly believed in the absurd notion that the blood of a close relative, used in drawing talismans and performing rituals, could cure all illnesses. I always remember how I desperately clutched at the nanny's sleeve, refusing to let go when they were forcibly taken away. With your background, how could you possibly raise them? The old madam insists on raising them herself, and you have no right to say no. Besides, you're their birth mother. When they grow up, they'll still be close to you. But as they grew up, not only were they not close to me, but they were also cruel to me. A maid in the mansion had an affair with a servant boy and became pregnant. Fearing they would be found out and driven out, she kept her belly hidden and managed to conceal it until the 7th month, when I happened to run into her, startled. She went into premature labor, with a life at stake. The situation was urgent. How could I stand by and do nothing? So I helped deliver her baby. Just as the infant came into the world with a cry, the door to the woodshed was suddenly kicked open. The old lady was furious, called for the family discipline, and had me whipped 10 times in public. My back was torn open, flesh mangled and bloody. I lay on the ground, drenched in cold sweat from the pain, utterly disgraced. My daughter clung to the old lady's waist, refusing to even glance at me, while my son pointed at me with eyes full of resentment and said, "You've degraded yourself and lost all dignity. You are not worthy to be my mother." Mother, the twins stood before me, bowing their heads as they addressed me. Young master and young lady must have mistaken me for someone else. I smiled faintly, lowering my eyes humbly. How could a mere midwife like me be worthy of being your mother? I am not wrong. Even if that child is a bastard, even if that maid is a harlot, even if delivering babies is something only done by village women and gossiping old crones, I still did nothing wrong. Zun Jinyun's grand arrival completely disrupted the peace that Yunai and I had. After they left, the neighbors kept asking, who was that celestial-like young master, and who were those exquisitely beautiful children? I thought for a moment and said to them, the mother of the twins suffered a severe hemorrhage during childbirth and nearly lost her life. The young master's mother insisted on saving the child over the mother, but I managed to save her. To them, I have a small favor, a slight merit, nothing more. I had no idea why Zun Jinyun brought the children to see me. I don't want to guess anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. 2 expectant mothers in Nan village are about to go into labor and have already informed me in advance. Hemostatic medicine, cunning pills, salvia pills, cloth towels, scissors, silver needles. After checking them 3 times, I carefully reviewed the medical records again, considering all possible scenarios. This is what is truly worth devoting one's mind to. Zun Jinyun sent his son and daughter to the city academy, where they became classmates with Yunai. No matter how good the academy was, it was merely a local school under the jurisdiction of Yunmeng County. How could it dare to neglect the descendants of a duke? Within a few days, the headmaster used the excuse of repairing the school buildings to send the students home. Zun Jinyun once again escorted Yunai back. This time, he didn't just gaze at me from the carriage, but walked up to me and said in a low voice, "Yanga is ill, she wants to see you." I looked at the girl among the twins. Her face showed signs of weariness, and she was still wearing an exquisite cloak in the summer heat. I remained unmoved and said calmly, "If you're sick, you should return to the city to see a doctor, or go back to the capital to seek treatment from the imperial physician. It's getting dark, you should leave soon." I called out for Yunai and turned to go back into the courtyard. My wrist was suddenly grabbed, and Zun Jinyun gritted his teeth and said, "Yanga is also your flesh and blood." This statement seemed to be a signal. Zun Yang quickly walked towards me, each step reflecting the delicate grace of a well-bred lady. Her skirt swaying without revealing the tips of her shoes, she wrapped her arms around my waist, pressing her burning cheek against my chest, and sobbed softly, "Mother, Yanga feels unwell." Zun Yang and Zun Qing ultimately stayed. I could never turn a blind eye to life and children. Zun Yang lay on the bed, curled up entirely in her cloak, not letting a single part of her skin or hair touch the coarse linen quilt. This posture wasn't actually comfortable, but she was willing. So I let her have her way. After checking her pulse, I told Zun Jinyun that Zun Yang was suffering from acclimatization. "You should return to the capital earlier." By the Emperor's command, Zun Jinyun said softly, "The selection of Imperial College students has not yet been completed." I softly uttered an "oh" and said, "Then let's hold the selection early, so we can return to the capital sooner." Zun Jinyun clenched his fingers and suddenly looked at me. "You say early selection to scheme for your adopted son, and you say early return to the capital to drive us away. Isn't that right?" I nodded. "Yes." Zun Jinyun seemed furious. "In your eyes, is there no place for me, for our child? It's not ours," I said calmly. "It's yours." Zun Yang, Zun Qing, biological father Zun Jinyun, raised by Lady Zun, has nothing to do with Luo Yarrow. Luo Yarrow doesn't want it anymore. Zun Jinyun's face instantly turned somewhat pale, his thin lips trembling as he murmured incessantly, "We are merely parting ways. Merely parting ways. You are still their mother, and they are still our children." Before I could utter another word of refusal, Zun Jinyun retreated 3 steps and turned to leave. I watched his hurried figure, a state of disarray that would never be seen on Zun Jinyun. It turns out that even the same word can have varying degrees of intensity. Zun Jinyun's despondency was reflected in his unsteady steps, while my despondency left me utterly disheveled. Which time was it? It was not long after our marriage, when I heard Zun Jinyun say to his close friend, "Marrying Luo Yaro was not my wish. I originally intended to marry a noble lady to form a powerful alliance through marriage. My father used her reputation to threaten me. I didn't care at first. But if I didn't marry her, I would lose the demeanor of a gentleman and might be criticized. Given the interests at stake, I had no choice but to agree, or perhaps it was when I was pregnant." And Zun Jinyun said, "The political situation in the court is unpredictable. The eldest son and heir should not be born at this time. Get rid of the child, or maybe it was the 4 snowmen I built, which he knocked down and trampled flat, coldly scolding. The manor is a place of solemnity. You should conduct yourself with restraint and not indulge in such frivolity. Or perhaps it was after I was subjected to the family discipline, when he looked at me with a cold, stern gaze. Degrading yourself with such absurd behavior, how can you be worthy of being the matriarch of the Zun family? There were far too many such incidents. Lost and dejected, I was like a walking corpse back then. How could I have any soul left? After Zun Jinyun left, I simmered a pot of lotus root and pork bone soup. I left Yunai to look after the twins and picked up my medicine chest to go to South Village. The delivery went relatively smoothly. After 2 hours of pain, losing half a basin of blood, and suffering a 3-finger tear, I gave birth to the child. This was one of the easier childbirths I've ever attended. Returning to the courtyard, I heard arguing inside the house. The first voice I recognized was Zun Qing's, filled with anger. "Do you think we wanted to come, if not for father's pressure? Who would willingly lower themselves to set foot in this filthy place?" Zun Yang also angrily retorted, "How dare you think you can drive us away? You're nothing but a country bumpkin, filthy." Zun Qing continued, "Low-class commoner, she forced my father's hand, making me drop out of school in the capital and come to this godforsaken place. It's all her fault." Zun Yang began to sob. "I miss grandmother. I want to go home." I lowered my head and touched my chest. In the past, just catching a distant glimpse of them would fill me with happiness and excitement, but now it has grown unusually quiet, as if it has fallen into a deep slumber or even died. I made some noise, and the room instantly fell silent. When I pushed the door open, 3 children were sitting behind the wooden table, each with a bowl of lotus root soup in front of them. Perhaps sensing that I had overheard their conversation, the twins both looked rather awkward. "Mother." Yunai stood up and took the heavy medicine chest from me. I washed my hands, and when I returned, there was an extra bowl of lotus root soup on the table. After I sat down, a piece of pork leg bone was added to my bowl. While Yunai picked a piece of lotus root from it, I smiled and said, "The young lady of the Zhao family has given birth to a daughter." Yunai nodded. "A few decades ago, I rode into the city with brother Zhao, and he had a feeling it would be a girl. He said he wanted to buy some floral fabric in advance to sew new clothes for the little one. He gave me a lot of that fabric as a token of gratitude. Tomorrow, I'll ask Granny Liu to sew a new outfit for you too." I said, "Mother, must we?" Yunai sighed. The words Yunai and I exchanged were all quite ordinary, yet somehow, one of them struck a chord with the twins. Bang! Zun Qing slammed the table and stood up, staring intently at me. "I know you heard me." Before I could speak, Zun Qing stiffened his neck and declared, "Even if you heard me, I'm not afraid. You and father were never a good match from the start. Because of your lowly background, we have no maternal family to rely on. When my sister marries and I enter officialdom, we will both be held back and looked down upon because of you." I pressed down on Yunai's hand that was about to flare up, calmly looked at the twins, and softly asked, "If it weren't for me, where would you two have come from?" Zun Qing and Zun Yang were both stunned. Later, Zun Jinyun came to pick up the twins. Before I could even say a word, someone rushed over in a hurry. "Madame Luo, Sister Yun from the southern village just had a bad fall. And there's blood everywhere." Just as I turned to call for help, Yunai was already running over, carrying a medicine chest in one hand and a lantern in the other. "It's getting dark. I'll escort mother back." Zun Jinyun stood in front of us, reaching his hand towards Yunai. "Give me the medicine chest." Yunai watched him warily. Zun Jinyun looked at me. his dark eyes deep as an abyss. I have a carriage, it's faster. I did not hesitate. Taking the medicine box and lantern as I walked towards Sun Jinyun's carriage, inside the carriage, I quickly flipped through sister-in-law Yun's medical records. Suddenly, the surroundings brightened. Sun Jinyun placed a luminous pearl beside my hand. I paid no attention to his actions. My full focus was on the medical records. Are you thirsty? Sun Jinyun suddenly asked. There's tea, the lotus leaf do you like? Not thirsty. I didn't look up, only refused in a faint voice. After a while, Sun Jinyun asked again. Are you hungry? There are pastries, lotus seed paste pastries, which you also like. I'm not hungry. I continued to stare at the page. After a while, Sun Jinyun spoke up. It's hot. Can you be quiet? I suddenly frowned, and after looking up to see it was Sun Jinyun, I fell silent for a moment. A human life is at stake here. Please do not disturb. Sister-in-law Yun had a difficult pregnancy. Her morning sickness was more severe than that of most women. With her whole body swollen and breathing labored, by the 7th month, she temporarily lost her eyesight. She struggled through to the 9th month, waiting for the baby to arrive naturally, but unexpected complications arose. Sister-in-law Yun seemed to sense something. Her withered fingers gripped my wrist tightly. Save the child, I beg you. I can die, but the child must not be harmed. I expressionlessly brushed her hand away and said calmly, I cannot save the child. Only you can save the child. If you live, the child can be born. If you die, both of you will be lost. Sister Yun gritted her teeth and exerted all her strength in agony. I've washed my hands 3 times, but my clothes are still stained with some blood. And the scent of blood inevitably clings to me. When I walked out of sister-in-law Yun's house, Sun Jinyun was waiting for me in front of the carriage, holding a lantern. The moon was bright and the stars sparse, with the fragrance of lotus blossoms drifting in the air. I've waited for him like this too. 1 lantern, 1 person. Waiting for him to return to the courtyard with me. The Duke's residence was very large. It took nearly half an hour to walk from the west courtyard where he and I lived to the east courtyard where the old Duke and his wife resided. Every day after court, he would go to the east courtyard to discuss matters with the old Duke. I worried that he might suffer from the wind, the rain, the cold snow, or the slippery ice. So I prepared a cloak, an umbrella, warm boots, and a lantern to meet him. At first, I was still allowed to wait for him in the side room of the east courtyard. Later, he wouldn't let me enter the courtyard, so I stood outside the door and waited. Later still, he wouldn't even allow me to come and wait anymore. There are plenty of people serving in the courtyard. Mother will prepare those things for me herself. If you have nothing to do, come to the east courtyard less often. His words still ring in my ears. Standing a few steps away from him, I bowed my head in greeting. Thank you, my lord, for seeing me off. We were once husband and wife. There's no need to be so distant. He averted his eyes and stepped aside. Get in the carriage. No, I looked at him and said softly, I have just finished delivering a child and am unclean, so I cannot ride in the carriage. I borrowed another lantern from sister-in-law Yun's family, then walked around the tall horse and headed straight down the country road. In the late summer and early autumn, the lotus flowers in the ponds along the roadside were fading, their leaves drooping toward the water. Though it was clearly a scene of decline, I felt no regret. The lotuses of Yunmeng thrive endlessly, though they may fall this autumn. Next year the leaves will once again stretch to the horizon in boundless green, unlike the lotus pond in the Duke's mansion in the capital, which was paved with gold bricks and jade. No matter how I cared for them, the flowers always bloomed fewer and fewer. The leaves grew sparser and sparser, until the vast lotus pond had only one last flower left, and I took that one with me too. Footsteps sounded behind me. I stopped and turned to look at Sun Jinyun. His blue robe still flowed with an ethereal grace, but the silver-threaded cloud-patterned shoe brocade shoes on his feet were caked with mud from trudging along the rural dirt road. Out of place. Once it was me and him, now it's him and me, Sun Jinyun. In the end, I called out his name, after a moment of astonishment. A light dawned in Sun Jinyun's eyes, his tone barely containing his excitement. You, I interrupted him. Why have you come to see me with the child? Sun Jinyun was silent for a moment before speaking. There are many misunderstandings between us. I hope you will return to the capital with me, so our family can be reunited." I tilted my head slightly and looked at him without saying a word. Zun Jinyun had always been a man of few words, but for some reason, he found himself speaking more than usual. "I was born with little emotion, and it was never my intention to neglect you. When dealing with others, I can clearly calculate the pros and cons, but with you, I lose all sense of calculation. I don't know how to treat you well, nor do I know what the right thing to do is. I won't do it again, Luo Yao. I've come to understand my own feelings now." Zun Jinyun could no longer restrain his emotions. His thin lips pressed tightly together as he finally spoke. "I have fallen for you." My gaze lingered on his face, staring at him in a daze for quite some time. If it were before, not to mention such a heartfelt confession, even a single glance from Zun Jinyun would have made my heart race like a drum. But at this moment, I found my heart unexpectedly calm. "Yaroa." Zun Jinyun walked over and took my hand. "I never remarried. My heart is full of you." I looked down at our intertwined hands and suddenly asked, "Would you be willing to stay in Yunmeng for me, resign from your official post or take an external assignment?" Zun Jinyun was taken aback. He was unwilling. I could tell. My expression was completely calm, even to the point of being unruffled. "You said there are many misunderstandings between us, and I know them all. But I also know that in your heart, the status of the Zun family and the power of the clan are more important than I am. Therefore, before marriage, you wanted to marry a noble lady for an alliance, and after marriage, you were ambiguously involved with the princess. Do you know when I decided never to look back? It wasn't when the old lady said you would take a wife and demote me to a concubine, nor was it when I proposed a divorce and you agreed without hesitation. But I saw the new mansion you personally designed when you were 16, to welcome the princess as your bride. After my separation from Zun Jinyun, I had to wait 15 days to receive the official documents, but the very next day, Zun Jinyun was dispatched to investigate a case and left the capital. My status at that time was quite awkward. I was no longer Zun Jinyun's wife. Yet I hadn't immediately become someone completely irrelevant. I had originally planned to move out of the main house, but unexpectedly, a large number of craftsmen began arriving one after another. "There's no need for you to move," the old lady's maidservant said to me with a fake smile. "What status does the princess have? How could she stoop to living in a room you've slept in? Moreover, when the eldest young master was 16, he personally designed a pavilion to welcome his future bride. Every brick, every tile, every plant, and every tree was built according to rank and regulations. That is the place where the eldest young master should reside, the Duke's mansion, with its immense wealth and influence. Filled in half of the lotus pond and erected a tall building from the ground up. I stood in the courtyard, watching that building rise from nothing, from low to high, its painted colors brilliant and dazzling to the eye. At that moment, I could no longer deceive myself. No matter how many times I made lotus root soup for him, no matter how many lotus leaf patterns I embroidered on his lapel, I was still nothing more than an unexpected surprise in his life. This building did not belong to me. Zun Jinyun does not belong to me either. You promised me 5 years as your wife, never remarried, and held affection for me. This is true. You tacitly allowed the rumors with the princess to spread, binding the Duke's estate to the influence of Prince Hui. This is also true. You wanted me to return to the capital with you, hoping to mend our broken relationship. This is true. You are unwilling to stay for me, to give up the family legacy. This is also true. I smiled faintly and said softly, "You are intelligent and clear-minded. You should know that I and the Zun family cannot coexist, and you will not choose me." "Yeah." Zun Jinyun's voice was hoarse, though he was usually a refined and upright nobleman. At this moment he seemed fragile and vulnerable. "In the past, I failed to see my own heart clearly and let you suffer grievances. I will explain to my mother. She will no longer trouble you. The people of the Duke's residence will respect and honor you. We can be a loving couple, and this has nothing to do with the Zun family. Why must you?" As expected, I sighed softly. "You will not choose me." Zun Jinyun was stunned, instinctively letting go of his hand. "Zun Jinyun, you have your brilliant life, and I have my own pursuits in life, perhaps ordinary, but deeply satisfying. Some flowers are born in muddy ponds, yet bloom in the wilderness. Some cranes bathe in radiant light. Remaining untainted by dust, flowers bloom everywhere. Cranes soar to the blue clouds. You and I are destined, yet fated to part. For the remaining journey, I carried a lantern, and Zun Jinyun also held a lantern, as we walked the final stretch in silent companionship. When the courtyard wall came into view, my sleeve was suddenly tugged. Zun Jinyun's fingers trembled slightly, uncontrollably, as he murmured in a low voice, "I have you in my heart, I just was too late." "It's not about being late," I withdrew my sleeve and said calmly, "it's about being wrong. If not for that night of the 15th of August, I would still be me, and he would still be him, each in our own places, each at peace." Yunai and the twins did not come into conflict again, however. The twins' gazes toward Yunai were filled with a hateful, crimson intensity. Before boarding the carriage, Zun Jinyun looked at me deeply and said, "I will come to see you again, there's no need." I replied, "I don't want to see you again, and I certainly don't want to see them either." The twins looked at me with the same gaze they had given Yunai. Zun Jinyun remained silent for a moment before taking the two children into the carriage. As the ornate carriage swayed into the distance, Yunai tugged at my hand and whispered, "Mother, I know I was wrong." "What?" I lowered my head to look at him. Yunai pursed her soft lips tightly, and after a long while, whispered. They kept speaking disrespectfully, and I couldn't bear to listen anymore. So I sprinkled a handful of andrographis into the lotus root soup. Andrographis is extremely bitter. One sip of it leaves a person unable to speak for half a day. Yunai said with some regret, "They are mother's children, I shouldn't have." "Mother, aren't you the only child?" I smiled at her. After laughing, I couldn't help but sigh softly. "It's just that your wish to enter the Imperial College might be hard to fulfill." "I'm not going to the Imperial College." Yunai looked up at me, his eyes clear and sincere. "I've decided to advance to the prefectural school. With the dean's recommendation, the Yunmeng Academy will send someone here soon. No matter how good Yunmeng Academy is, it still can't compare to the Imperial College in the capital." Yunai originally had the ability to enter the Imperial College. A mother's nurturing love and a shortcut to instant success, Yunai said with a smile. "I will always choose my mother." 22. Not long after, Yunai began studying at Yunmeng Academy. The following year, when he returned home to visit his family, he brought in a lotus flower from outside the courtyard gate. Perhaps someone picked it from the lotus pond for fun and carelessly discarded it, Yunai said as he handed the flower to me. The flower was on the verge of blooming. So I found a porcelain vase to nurture it. This lotus continued to bloom even after the Mid-Autumn Festival. From then on, flowers bloomed every year, yet I never saw the person who had picked and abandoned the flower. Side story: Zun Jinyun, the eldest son of the main branch of the duke's household, possessed peerless beauty and maintained an aloof, self-restrained demeanor. In his conduct and dealings, he never made a single misstep. Employing numerous strategies with far-reaching ambitions, how to build his reputation, how to establish his authority, and even in the future, how to use marriage alliances to consolidate his power, each and every matter had been meticulously planned by Zun Jinyun. At the age of 14, he chose to align himself with the Prince of Hui's faction. At 15, as anticipated, he encountered the princess and won her heart. By 16, he had personally drawn up the plans for their future marital home. According to his plan, this blueprint would eventually be seen by the princess, and upon seeing it, she would become utterly devoted to him, willing to follow his every wish. However, unexpectedly, a young girl named Luo Yaro came looking for her. The girl carried a tattered bundle on her back, yet in her arms was a fresh, tender lotus flower. She said somewhat shyly that she had no travel money and didn't want to come empty-handed. So she had picked flowers from the lotus pond outside the city as a small token of her feelings. Her father promised her hand in marriage. He was opposed from the bottom of his heart, yet he never showed the slightest hint of it, for he was the model of a noble family's son. Filial piety came first, and his parents' commands were of utmost importance. He could tell that from their very first meeting. Luo Yaro's ears had turned red with a blush at first sight. This only made him more restless. If he didn't marry the princess but instead a commoner, his path to power and officialdom would be fraught with many more detours. But he never expected that Luo Yaro would actually refuse. Luo Yaro clearly had feelings for him, yet she wanted silver and shops, not him. This was unexpected. Not only that, but after tactfully declining the marriage proposal, Luo Yaro began avoiding him intentionally or unintentionally, with Zun Jinyun's looks and background. What kind of womanly tricks hadn't he seen before? It's just a matter of playing hard to get. Later, Zun Jinyun realized that wasn't the case. Luo Yaro was genuinely avoiding him. Luo Yaro came from the countryside and often did foolish things that lowered her status. She dared to roll up her trousers, wade into the lotus pond to dig up lotus roots, and hold the segmented roots in her arms, her eyes brimming with laughter, as bright as the stars. This is utterly absurd, even late at night. A young lady in her boudoir should not expose her legs, those gleaming, fair and delicate limbs. What if someone were to see them? At the very least, in the depths of a sleepless night, he had caught sight of them. What made him even more frustrated was that those lotus roots she had cooked into soup were distributed to every courtyard, except his. Zun Jinyun wasn't angry, he just felt a knot in his heart. On the night of the 15th of August, Zun Jinyun was supposed to accompany the princess, but as if bewitched, he ended up following Luo Yaro instead. Luo Yaro sat by the pond, eating mooncakes and laughing to herself. Tomorrow, she would be leaving the estate, yet she could still laugh at a time like this. Zun Jinyun nearly crushed his ebony fan in his grip. Just then, he saw the maid from the princess's side quietly approaching Luo Yaro. Zun Jinyun immediately saw through the maid's intentions. He could have spoken up to stop her, thrown his fan as a warning, or simply turned a blind eye. Yet in that fleeting moment, he made the most unconventional choice of his life. After Zun Jinyun married Luo Yaro, he didn't know how to interact with her. This wasn't part of his plan, so he could only rely on his nature and handle it with detached composure. His close friend asked him how he felt about being newly married. Of course, he would not reveal the truth of that night. So he feigned indifference and spoke words contrary to his heart. When Luo Yaro became pregnant, he was overjoyed. Luo Yaro and he truly had a child of their own flesh and blood, but at the same time, he sensed something was wrong. The princess, unwilling to accept her position, sought to replace Luo Yaro but feared the dangers of childbirth, so she conspired with her mother to secretly administer a forbidden drug to Luo Yaro. This drug could cause a woman to conceive multiple fetuses. If Luo Yaro were to die during childbirth, and they chose to abandon the mother to save the children, their wish would be fulfilled. This matter involved the princess and her birth mother. Neither of them could speak of it openly, so he found an excuse to have Luo Yaro abort the child. Luo Yaro had a resilient nature, and his mother also disagreed. The princess intervened and had him transferred away from the capital. In the end, Luo Yaro risked her life to give birth to twins. But it also damaged her health, requiring careful rest to avoid leaving lasting health issues. He then agreed to let his mother raise the two children, allowing Luo Yaro to focus on recovering her health. But Luo Yaro knew nothing of this. In the dead of winter, she sneaked into the child's courtyard and piled up that ridiculous snowman. In such freezing cold, does she have a death wish? Furious, he knocked over her snowman and warned her never to act so recklessly again. Luo Yaro's status was already difficult to justify in the eyes of others. If she were not careful and gave the princess or her mother any leverage, her situation would become even more precarious. But she insisted on delivering a bastard child for a promiscuous woman. How could they handle the situation without giving people a reason to gossip? He had originally thought of letting his mother teach her a lesson so she would remember it in the future. But he never expected his mother to administer a public whipping without showing any mercy. When he returned to the mansion, he saw only her pale face. The bloodstains on her back made his heart ache with pain, but when he thought of her actions, wasn't she afraid of being caught and having it used as leverage to threaten their marriage? Words of reprimand burst from his lips. Zun Jinyun did not want Luo Yaro to leave her, yet Luo Yaro was gradually drifting away from her. It was unclear when their relationship had changed, but the adoration in Luo Yaro's eyes when she looked at her was gone. She noticed that Luo Yaro was growing closer to the young physician in the household. One day, she found dozens of letters in Luo Yaro's dressing case. Upon opening them, they were all drawings of women's private parts, extremely lewd. All these letters came from that physician. For Luo Yaro, he gave up a marriage alliance he had been planning for years, yet she treated him like this. Zun Jinyun was both panicked and annoyed, both angry and resentful. So, when Luo Yaro proposed a separation, he didn't even think twice before coldly saying, "Good." From then on, they would go their separate ways, like a shattered mirror and a broken hairpin.